Okay, hello Eileen Hull fans. This is for my monthly blog post. I thought I would do a flip through of my book for December and what I'm doing. I'm currently doing a Christmas junk journal series. This was making the book, and it's all on my blog. I'm up to 3 parts now. Basically, part 1 was making the book, part 2 was doing some of the ephemera and tags and whatnot, and part 3 is making the first booklet. So I'm having fun doing this. For those of you that like to document your December, this is a great way of doing it. You can also make this project to be pretty much anything, but basically this is what I'm doing. And let's get started. I do have a cup of coffee, I did have to say. This tells you how much of the Christmas mood I'm not quite ready for. I'm still got my summer mug. I'm almost down to the end of my coffee cup, but I thought that was pretty funny. I'd show you. Although I do have peppermint mocha Christmas creamer in there, so I'm getting there. I'm getting there, and this will help. Let's get to it. Okay, this was made with the Pocket Notebook, Eileen's Pocket Notebook. Here you go. Pocket Notebook. This is the cover art for the Pocket Notebook. And basically what I love about this is the size. It's very different. It's a unique size for Eileen's dies, and I just love it. I love that the spine is so wide. It's got a 2-inch spine. It allows for a lot to fit in there. Basically the cover, so it's 4 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall, just a little skosh bigger than those sizes. So when you make the books, you can make them those sizes and they fit in with a little bit of the cover to spare. What I did was I cut my paper 7 3/4 inches wide, and again the 6.5 inches tall, and that gave me the size of my book. Now when I made this, what I did was I just cut all my paper like that, folded them individually, and then put them in together. So what ends up happening is you kind of get this effect of the paper pushing out from the middle. I don't mind that. I'm a mixed media. This is a junk book. It doesn't bother me. If that bothers you, there's 2 things you can do. Number 1, put less pages per book. Number 2, cut all your pages at the same time, layer them up, and then when you fold them, kind of fold it so the outside papers are more rounded and the inside papers are going to be flatter, and that way you will get less of this. And then what you can do is just take a guillotine and trim the edges. So if that bothers you, go for it. That's what you can do. So here's my book. It's made out of fabric. The cover, again, the whole tutorial is on my blog, and basically covered it in fabric, did some fun ephemera on there, and did a little bit of sewing. This was in between I used the ThermoWeb fusible fleece, which gives it that quilted look, which I just love it. And I made some mistakes along the way that I've corrected, and I've got some hot tips. I don't like so much that you can kind of see the edge of the foam, and so what I realized is it was the way I cut it. So there are some hot tips on how I would fix that, which is always it's a good thing that we make these books and we can help you, prevent you from making the mistakes. I put a little pocket in here, and then if you come to the inside, you can see I've bound mine with elastic, but I do have them hidden. I am going to put some kind of beading and whatnot on the back. I haven't finished this by any means. It is an ongoing process, and that's why I'm making it a series. But for now, I do have the spaces to put my booklets in. One of the great things about this, why I love the size, is they are basically fit the booklets that you get from the dollar store. So this is just a weekly planner from the dollar store. I took off the cover, and this will fit right in my book. And if I want to take it with me, take it out, all I have to do is lift up the elastic and basically slide that out pretty easily. Same with any booklets that go in here. So that just makes it really easy, easy peasy. And then this book can stay at home nice and pretty. It doesn't go in my purse, obviously. I don't want it to get damaged, but I can take the individual booklets out as I need them. This was my December book. The reason why I did this primarily was because I do December daily, or I attempt to do December daily every year. And I'm not always successful, but at the very least, I always get my journaling done. So what I wanted to do this year was to have a better way of journaling and a better way of sort of keeping a documentation, but where it's special, as opposed to just putting it in a notebook. So I made this book, and the idea is I'm going to write. It's going to be primarily for writing, but then every day I can put a photo. So it will still be somewhat documentation and a bit of a December daily. And then I can make my December daily on the side of that with more of the photos, but I can pick my individual stories I want to tell. So that was the basis for this book. I used a lot of Eileen Hull dies. I will pull them out as we go, and I also have links on my blog. There's a full tutorial on how I made this on my blog, but I did want to do this flip through. So here we go. This is the tab that comes from the Pocket Notebook. So it's basically can be used in multiple ways. Here it's used to sort of as a closure, an elastic closure wrap. And here I've used it to just sort of as a backdrop for my numbers or my dates. Made this out of a little canvas piece and took a little piece of wood and added some beads just for fun. Most of the papers in here are either old papers from my stash or the Tim Holtz booklet, the Christmas 8x8 paper, which he came out with this year. He comes out with it usually every year, which is great because now I can, 8x8 is the perfect size to cut these books out of. I have a little canvas with some stamping. I'm going to add beads or a charm to this, and I made this cute little Deck the Hall. This is a snippet from Tim Holtz. A lot of the stamps are from different companies, but Paper Artsy, for example. This post is part 2 on my blog, and it tells you how I made these little inky all these little inky tags and in ephemera. So if you want to check that out, I have a full tutorial how to get this kind of look. I have a tag going here. And then again, I have one of Eileen's dies. I use this die quite a bit in this book, so I will pull it out. And it is the journal card flower and leaves. I used it, I cut a bunch of the flowers. I have some of the leaves, but I also used it for the index card because it gives this nice little look, and I'll point that out as I go along. The tutorial is also on my blog on how I made these, cutting them out, inking the edges, and adding embossing powder. This has some of 2 different types of Eileen's embossing powder, the glistening glass, and then the silver that she has. Put in a Project Life card. It can just slip underneath my tuck spot there. Again, this is another of Eileen's dies that was cut out and foiled, and I'll talk about that as we go forward. Again, this is to put a lot of writing in. So I have a lot of writing paper, but I don't like white necessarily, so I just inked it up, did some stamping, and look at these fun shimmery stars. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. So I basically took a stencil and added in Decofoil Metallics, which is this gel that dries dimensional. It's like a paste. And again, that tutorial is on my blog as well. And this color is aged copper, which I just love, love, love. It just adds that nice little something to your project. This is a tab from the journal die, I believe. That was on there. And then again, another little pop of that pretty copper. I took just a plain piece of notepad. Look what you can do with notepad. Just take it, distress the edges, add a piece of washi tape and a sentiment, and now I have somewhere special to do my writing. I can put a hidden photo back here and, whatever, ephemera, etc. This is a digital printout that I did. This, again, is part of that part 2 on how to make the ephemera on my blog. And this stamp is from Paper Artsy, and it's just distressed up. One of the things I like to do is a bit of a collector on this, hoarder/collector, as we tend to be. I don't think I'm alone. But I like getting these list books at Christmas, and then I just keep, random amounts in my December daily so that every year I get more and I can add to my stash of fun goodness, the ones that are not been used throughout the month. And again, that was just distressed and added on there. A Project Life card and some Tim Holtz ephemera. That just tucks in there, and I can do my wish list or my kids' wish list or my wish list for what I want for the season. It's just a piece of paper. This is what I like doing. If I do a lighter piece of paper, you just back it with something else and then it's strong enough for your book. This, I have a number of these. This is from Ephemera Garden. I love their digitals, and because I love owls, and in fact, I want an owl. I want an owl. They're so cute. Here's another example of distressed paper with some stamping and another tab from the journal die. Again, I've taken a Project Life card. One of my favorite things to do is make flips with washi tape. So I've made that flip in there, and I always use decoupage glue on top of my washi just to give it some stability, because it's not really designed to stay and stick and hold. For those of you that play with washi, didn't do a good job, very good job. You see, you can see but it doesn't matter. It's mixed media-ish. Put a tag with a pocket, and again, here is that metallics. And what I did was, once that cured, so I gave it about 24 hours, I came in with a Posca paint pen and I just created that shadow. It looks so pretty. Here I made a pocket. So here's that frame again that comes from this die. You can see with the cute sort of scallopy edges. So I cut a piece of paper of that. That's the frame for my photo. And then this is Eileen's, the same technique, where I embossed. Look at that. Distressed some paper, embossed it with clear, and then added goldenrod on top and a brad. And boom, there you're done. I made this little card. This is from one of Eileen's dies as well, the journal card die, or credit. Let me pull that out for you. Credit card die. She has a lot of die cuts. If you go to her Etsy shop, you can see quite a few of them, and there's just some great dies that you can use for this type of thing. I don't have it here. The other thing I was going to mention is that how I store my ephemera. I'm going to show you in a second, but I did find, here's this card, comes from this, and it is the credit card sleeve and tags. So I have a lot of these little tags throughout the book that I made from this, and then I am going to do some of these. These are fun, where you cut the paper, you know, and then there's a little bar that you add in, and then you can add your tags in there. So I'm going to do that at some point as well. Basically, though, I created this little card with some journaling. That's just a stamp. I mean, use our, you know, postage stamps are always fun. So here's another example of using that glistening glass embossing. I just love what that does. I'll try and pull out one before and after so you can see it. And but I basically made that, added some pretty sequins in there and a little bit of bling. This is a Tim Holtz die, but I'm good to go. And then that can just slide in there. So while we're talking about ephemera, let's talk about a couple of ways to store the ephemera sort of quickly. I've gotten, again, this is a Tim Holtz tin, and I've put my more fragile, smaller bits, and sorry for the glare, but there's a lot of metal. It's kind of hard to avoid. So this is one of Eileen's dies, for example, and there's the little cute little card. That's one of hers as well. And here's one that's foiled, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But again, the example that I wanted to show you was the difference between embossing and not embossing. So this is from Tim. It's one of his deer sets with these little deer. So here it is. I could cut it out, plain and simple, from the die cut, and I would get this. Or I can cut it out, add some of Eileen's embossing powder, and that is the goldenrod. Look how pretty that is. It just adds that super shine. So I think what I did was I covered it in glistening glass first because the legs don't have it, and I just sprinkled some of the goldenrod in there, and it gave me the combination of the clear and the gold. So I've done that quite a bit throughout the book just because it adds so much bang for your buck. The second way I'm storing my dies cuts, and I do have another blog post on making a book for this, but I just took one of these 4x6 photo sleeve booklets, and I put my, as I cut, I'm trying to batch cut, so I'm not constantly pulling out my dies, and it's just easier if I make a bunch. Like I did this, and now that can be inked, it can be embossed with different colors. I could emboss it with clear and I get a nice green leaf. And again, that's from that same set. That's what you get when you cut the die out of this. You get all those different leaves. So I had a class and we used one of the leaves, and now I have all these extras that I can play with. There's one, in fact, that's been colored with the gold. And there's another one that I did with the metallics. So I have this little book, and as I go through, I'm just adding dies, pieces of dies through. So I'm trying to be mindful of don't cut one, grab a bunch of paper, cut 3, use one, and then you have the extras. That's sort of the way I'm going. So this will be built as I go, and then anything I don't use, I can use for next year. That's one of my hot tips. There's going to be some hot tips today, and that's one of them. Okay. Covered this with some paint, did some stamping with a little tag on the side. This is just a fun card. Good way to use those little cards you can get at the dollar store or the dollar bin. Added a digital on the other side. Made a tuck pocket. And this is using ephemera. Some of them are digital. This I think is Tim Holtz from his ephemera packs, fun ephemera packs that he does with a little bit of ribbon. Again, these just are blank. I can do whatever I want as I get to it. An inky piece of paper that's in my blog post. Here's a fun way to take a piece of scrapbook paper and fold it over and make a tuck spot. And then I just put a couple of digital prints in my tuck spot. I'm good to go on that. Just add, look how much fun that adds. It gives me fun things to play with when I get to that point. Some more paper. I think this is authentique. I'm not 100% sure. Here's another fun thing to do with Eileen's house die. So she has, let me find it here on the side. I just had it 5 seconds ago. Here we go. This is from the Heartfelt Creation collection that came out a few years ago. It's the House Pocket Stitchlets. So you get all these little pieces. You can see all the pieces that you get. And what I did was I took the house die and I cut the shape of the house out of cardstock. And look at that. That makes a perfect pocket. So then you just put some glue on those sides, and now I've got a perfect pocket. And there's a second way that I use that paper as well. This was a thinner piece of paper, but I just liked it. Again, I don't necessarily want every page to have Christmas on it because, you know, not all of December is only Christmas stuff. But I did put a very Christmassy piece on the back. That's from an old Teresa Collins pack with one of Tim's words and ephemera that are so fun. And I made this tag. And this is also one of my old, go back through my blog. I'll put the link below, but I made a bunch of different ephemera tags. And this is from one of his dies as well by Sizzix. And then just put a little tab, and I can put photo, I can put writing on the back, whatever I want. Maybe a picture of the Christmas tree. That's the back of that tag. This doesn't even go, but you know, it's fine. Not everything has to match. I added a piece of ephemera. Again, that's Ephemera's Garden. I'll put that link as well. And I just made this pull out this time. And this can be whatever I want. I can add a piece of cardstock to that. I can add a list, etc. Here's where I use the full pocket, house pocket die. And basically I just fold it in half. And I put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here. So I have one pocket on this side. And then I have the matching pocket on the back. So that's just kind of a fun thing to do. I made another of these another card, which I love. Again, so much fun with this neat red wood grain paper. And again, did the same thing. Here it is with the glistening glass emboss. Look at what that does for that, as opposed to just a plain piece of paper. And I don't know. I mean, I'll just pull out a random. I think this was the exact same color. So look at the difference. I cut it out of this color and I got that. This is a no-brainer. Add the embossing powder. That's the back of that card. Now we're hitting to the back. I have less going on here. I will add to this as I go, but this is the other pieces of paper sort of from the front of the book. And just did some snowflake stamping and just random stamping along the way. That's the back of that owl ephemera piece of paper. And again, this one is kind of fun. I just added some stamping. These are paper artsy stamps and an owl. And then again, that same leaf die, and it's edged with ink, embossed with the glistening glass, which is clear, and then just sprinkled some of Eileen's white in there and some glitter. And lastly, I've got a little bit of napkin. This is just a decoupage napkin on the back of my tag. So that's it. Now my book is ready to go to get all my journaling in and everything that I want to document for this month. So that will be good. That'll be helpful when it comes time to doing a scrapbook page or doing my December daily or whatever else I'm going to do. And so now if you want to stay tuned, I'm going to add a little technique at the end of this video for where I made these snowflakes. I made these embossed snowflakes with the Decofoil glistening glass, rainbow glistening glass. I just love it. So this is accomplished with two different techniques, and I am going to show you that, but we're going to have to do it in a separate video. So please go to video part 2. See you soon.